airports that come down out of the boat. But this has a fixed keel, which makes it extremely stable. That is actually, yes. And I've seen the boat in the water, but I haven't seen him out racing it. He races with the guy. This gives these people an opportunity to experience Lake Superior, and it gives them a better self-image, it keeps them fit, it gives them exercise.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm like, I remember this ship from somewhere.
There, right?
You want to kind of sprite a little bit, huh?
I got it.
We'll all be waiting till the judgment day. You'll all be buried. On to heaven.
1994 has not exactly been a banner year for Northland labor groups. While the reopening of National Steel was indeed an important win, the loss of Diamond Tool and President Clinton's order for striking Sioux Line employees to return to work were significant blows. Still, labor leaders say they are looking ahead to a bright future.
And this year, I want to think about the gains that we can make looking ahead. And I don't think labor ever made any gains by looking backwards. The people that got the 8-hour day in occupational health and whatever did so by fighting forward, not backwards.
Those rights were celebrated today in Duluth at a Labor Day picnic. While the mission of the day was to relax and have fun, the Labor Party was still hard at work urging members to get out and vote in the upcoming elections. While Labor Day meant a day off for many of the people here enjoying the picnic, it was anything but a day off for local politicians who are out busy trying to win last-minute votes in the all-important 8th District. Traditionally, winning labor endorsements are a good sign candidates will take the 8th District, something both DFL candidates Ann Winia and John Marty are counting on.
The labor endorsements have been incredibly helpful and very positive thing. I think it's going to make the difference in the election.
Thank you, George. Proud to shake your hand. Thank you.
Marty's DFL competitor for Governor, Tony Boza, made an appearance at today's picnic despite conflicts with the Labor Party. At the heart of his trouble, Boza's stance on workers' compensation reform.
That must happen, and I know there isn't anyone here that would agree with that. But in order to create more union jobs in this state, we're going to have to reform workers' comp. That's where my real trouble with labor begins and ends.
Whether they had the party's endorsement or not, candidates turned out in full force today, knowing union members will also turn out in that same force come Election Day. In Duluth, Stephanie Guadian, News 6.
I looked up and I seen the plane, and I didn't hear any sound with it, and it started nosediving. And it seemed like it was going to pull up a little bit, and it went on one side of its wings, and it went straight down into the ground and blew up.
he has finally woken up and looked around and has seen that he's on the wrong side of this health care debate. He's not been for prescription drugs, and in the last 2 days, he's suddenly trying to do a flip-flop and mislead the public into believing that he is and he always has been. The facts are the Cooper Row plan that Tom Foley has stated on many occasions that he supports.
It just kept getting worse, and pretty soon it was coming over the bridge about noon, and it didn't take long after that, about 10-15 minutes, and it was over with.
There are drugs out there are drugs that are circulating out there. Our department, other departments, other agencies do work very hard at eliminating these drugs and doing what we can. And, you know, our hope, our goal is that they all go up in smoke.
You didn't want to sit down last time, did you? Huh? Huh? You waved? Have you been a good girl? Have you been a real good girl? Huh? Oh, I didn't know Santa Claus looked like that. But pretty, huh? Where are you? Mrs. Claus, there you are. Who's that? Santa Claus, huh? Who's this?
Lunchtime is still hectic and noisy, but at Woodland School in Duluth, the amount of time children are being given to eat has more than doubled.
Based upon your report, we took a look at what we were doing and made some adjustments.
Following our investigation, Woodland's principal asked lunch servers and supervisors to analyze their program. Like many of the schools in Duluth, they found that students were getting an average of only 6 minutes to eat. They then asked the kids how they felt about the situation.
To be quiet and ask, in a couple, 3 days in a row, how many people are not having enough time to finish their lunch? And there were a number of hands went up, not the majority, but certainly a number of hands. So we reassessed the situation at that point.
Based on those findings, they adjusted schedules, added an extra serving line, and are now giving kids an average of 20 minutes to eat lunch.
At Woodland, Barbara Riles, News 6.
And everything was on the up and up. It smells pretty bad right now that somebody's deceiving somebody, whether it's coming from the mayor's office or city hall or whether it's from the developer. I don't know, but I feel like myself as a counselor and possibly other counselors feel like we literally have almost been sold down the river on this project. And the citizens bought into this deal. They voted in the referendum to go ahead with it, and now to be deceived by someone that the major financing source has withdrawn. Not just yesterday, but 4 or 5 months ago or whenever.
His deadlines. I'm really concerned about the project right now because the fact is that we need some real answers from Sam Brown on this, exactly where he's sitting on the finances. You know, stop giving us the shake around a little bit. We need some facts.
Members of Friends of Bayfront Park agree, saying Mayor Gary Doty should have immediately informed the public when he found out that Horizon was no longer backing the mall project.
The mayor knows, as we all do in Duluth, that this was an item of very great interest to the citizens of this community. We had a petition drive that led to a referendum. A number of people in the community, even those who ended up voting for it, were very apprehensive about the project. And to not reveal that information is simply shameful.
How do you think others feel? I know as Friends of Bayfront Park, you've been against the mall being built there from the beginning, but
about it. And how can we believe anything that is said that comes from that desk from now on, if we can't have this total trust that they are telling us things, and the things we should rightfully have the knowledge to. And we aren't exactly stupid, and that's what I think they're implying, that we are so ignorant that we don't need this information.
Those other arson fires in the Central Hillside neighborhood, does it? No, I wouldn't think so. Just from our initial, aspect here, it is an occupied building. There are people living in all the apartments. We've identified, we have most of the residents here. So initially I would say no, but we'll have to wait for the investigation to find out.
A lot of the people that this applies to are already under a special use permit, because anyone who has been involved in overnight use for years in the boundary waters has come under a similar program. It is now being extended to day use guides and being extended to the entire Superior National Forest. This new plan affects anyone that's guiding or has a commercial service on National Forest land, period.
I'm Tom Brokaw. Tonight, women flying fighter jets on combat missions. How are they fitting in? We'll have an NBC News exclusive from today's front lines tonight on NBC Nightly News.
I'm Dave Jensch. Coming up tonight on the 6 o'clock news, a Northland firm is taking the lead in nuclear disarmament with equipment headed for Russia. We'll tell you about that. Federal investigators are taking another look at the extent of contamination at a waste site in Hermantown. And they blew up the old Met Center today, but that's not the entire story. We'll show you that and more on tonight's 6 o'clock news.
City officials hope the USS Des Moines will be a big tourist attraction. They say it would mean more revenue for city coffers. And after signing a lease yesterday with grandmas, backers of the project hope it will mean more money for them, too.
The plan for now is to put the Des Moines over there behind Grandma's Sports Garden, but opposition is growing both by people who feel that that's a bad place for the ship and by people who don't want the ship here at all.
It is not appropriate to put this at the center of our city because it doesn't fit. It's due to be placed right along here, and some of the proposals that I've seen, the guns will be aiming right up there at First United Methodist Church, Copper Top on the skyline, and I guess that message kind of concerns me a little bit.
This ship is scheduled for scrap, and it should be scrapped. And this is the time of year to do it, to scrap it, to stop this nonsense of trying to bring a monument to war, when we are seeking in the city of Duluth to be violence-free.
But those who back the Des Moines coming to Duluth says the ship is one of peace. It never fired a lethal shot while in service. Its purpose was mainly as a fleet flagship.
And it should be preserved. There are thousands of people who enjoy the ship of all ages. Veterans, youth groups, the scouting groups will be staying overnight on this ship. They'll have access to the ship. The tourists are going to enjoy it. It isn't going to ruin the skyline here or the lift bridge of Duluth. We've looked at this thing, it's going to add to it.
And while those who oppose the project may not have any legal means for action, the lease is on private property, there has been the suggestion of a boycott of Grandma's restaurants. In Duluth, Bill Lunn, News 6. You can tell when mushers invade Duluth by those funny-looking trucks. Most are homemade with all those doors on the side and the little beady eyes of eager sled dogs staring out. Those trucks are parked all over town, some having driven all the way from Virginia on the east coast to Alaska on the west. But no matter where they're from, one concern they all share is word that the trails are hard-packed and icy, and the effect it will have on their dogs.
Well, we've got ointment and booties, and that's mainly what we're going to be dealing with. It's the feet, We've got to keep the feet good. No feet, no dogs. So it's just a matter of, a guy taking his time, keeping cool, not getting caught up with the hype. Just go out there and do your own race.
Dogs come first. Musher just hangs on and feeds them. Doesn't do you any good to run them hard if you got to finish with them. So the more dogs you have to finish, obviously the better shape you're going to be on the race.
But in the last few days, volunteers along the North Shore have been trucking in extra snow to the trails and to the checkpoints. Race Marshal Al Marple has been out inspecting the trail.
And what I've seen is a doable trail. And I think with all the other considerations, a very safe trail. There's always a certain amount of risks that go along with dog mushing. Those risks, of course, are still there, but I don't believe it's due to the trail.
19 mushers are entered in this year's marathon race, 500 miles from Duluth to Grand Portage and back. And race officials say with conditions the way they are, race times this year will likely be slower. In Duluth, Bill Lund, News 6.
For some reason or another, it got caught under this car and was dragged along and never hit anything else. It didn't start rolling or anything. It was very unusual to me because I've seen them that they were just, just a piece of junk. But on this one, from the doorpost back, there wasn't a dent in the car or a broken window.
Of the 20th century, committed to the goals of freedom, justice, and by the United States Department of Justice tells us of the explosive that some of our communities have become. Our cities are the blood. We have heard the fears and the voices of our children. And it was a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, sadness of the unemployed, but the productive contribution of working people in all parts of the country, aging, but the help and wisdom that comes with the blessings of life. We will see not the pain and anguish of a child starving to death in Ethiopia.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I know that this is Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, but we all come here year after year, march up and down the street and say, we shall overcome, and we go back home and sit down and do nothing. That's the reason we're in the mess we're in now.
So we have to work a little bit harder to eliminate the hate that we have in our society and show the love that we have. And we can start it here in Duluth, Minnesota.
Freedom and justice. I have a dream. My 4 little children
will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. Singing the words of that old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last.
Thank you very much, Betty.
This morning, we've already had a presentation.
But it's going to be
How is it working? What is working? What is not working? Making with this agreement. So every 2 years, we are required, the IJC, the International Joint Commission, we are required to issue a report to the two governments on the status of the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement. But we are also required by that agreement to have public input. Obviously, the binational, the Lake Superior binational program, agreement between the countries, and I don't know what the
Now, if you can't go into what happened, it's very difficult. In the first place, Todd Warren was going to testify in this case. There's no way he was not. There's no way he could not testify in this case. So it's not a matter of choice. At least that's what we felt. I felt the testimony was credible and believable. Now, obviously, there are other people who didn't feel that way. I didn't feel he did that bad a job. That's just my personal opinion.
How hard has this been for Todd? He didn't show a lot of emotion during the verdict last night, but you've obviously come to know him.
Here.
nothing. Mr. Neal, can you tell me what line of defense you'll be taking?
No. It appears that he went.
Personally, I don't think anybody is going to buy it except those who have a certain, what I would call rabid curiosity about blood and guts. But it's a disappointing story.
setting this out as a problem and beginning and lead governors on education. They each have guests. So, Governor Hunt.
There's no magic, folks. Those first 5 years are crucial. Think about your own children or your grandchildren. Now, we have learned over time, and Dr. Hamburg has talked about this, that those earliest years are, of course, families have the responsibility for raising children. We know these things. And so kids are getting an awful lot less. And I would say to you today, we cannot leave ages 1.
But 50 years ago in the Pacific, on an island named Iwo Jima, younger bodies thought they'd never see home again. 6,000 casualties, 6,800. Monument stands tall in tribute to the men who for 36 days
here. It's just overwhelming, and it's and now she has a daughter moving back to the
Any job, sometimes that makes a difference to people's.
I would look at it if, for example, that if polls showed that none of the candidates or the incumbent were re-electable, then I'd have to look at it. But you know, I don't see that much disenchantment, although there is some with the present administration. But you'd have to let me know a little later on down the road what the polls show.
Building downtown, where community services used to be, a guy that owns it used to own the Casablanca, and you remember the big to-do about us buying the building? Right. We're knocking the building down now, and he's, yeah, it's might even be all down by now. But this guy,
Mom?
Yes, honey. This is taxes.
This year, it is especially important that everyone filling out a tax return give complete and accurate information. The reason is that the IRS will be checking those returns very carefully, looking for people trying to claim erroneous and fraudulent refunds. If possible, to analyze each and every tax return placed at the IRS to catch people filing fraudulent returns. Those same screens, however, will also identify any return that is not filled out completely and accurately. So before you start sifting through the shoeboxes full of receipts, check the easy stuff, like names and social security numbers, yours and your children's.
What we would like to do is eliminate.
We'll give you the floor, Councilman. All right, thank you very much.
Hiring of temporary employees and project, and therefore there's been no support demonstrated.
I feel that this has been extremely deceptive because I know that Mr. Potts passed himself off to me as if he were the project director and funded by the Des Moines project.
So I checked this out with Jeff Potts, who's executive director. In fact, over the course of the last number of months, I have, as have a number of counselors, something isn't quite right. And I think the citizen goes that far to the Duluth Economic Development Authority or to the City Council. So we did retain Mr. Potts on a temporary basis as an employee under the 67-day clause during that period.
antagonists to come at you.
And unless we hold people accountable for these dangerous actions, irresponsible actions, negligent actions, these kinds of conditions are going to continue to be allowed, and it's wrong. We shouldn't allow that kind of transportation to exist.
Citizen of the month, I'd like to call on the chief of police.
The kid's always zeroing on the
It's official. Minneapolis-based comedian Louis Anderson will star in his own sitcom-based show about a psychiatrist who works at an HMO and lives in Duluth. Each episode will be filmed outside of this area, and the beginning of the show will resemble that of the open for the Mary Tyler Moore Show, but with Duluth scenery. Now, I wasn't able to get an interview with Louis Anderson, so I used my noodle and did the next best thing. I spoke with a Louis lookalike. So, Bob, I have to ask you this. If you were Louis Anderson, where would you work, and more importantly, where in Duluth would you live?
Well, I've got the greatest job right now, so I would be continuing to work at Finger Hut. Where would I live? Well, I think the Congan Mansion is probably one of the most beautiful places in Duluth. I would have to live over there. The history of the place and the beauty of the landscape, that's where I would live.
After the Wednesday announcement locating the Louis Show in Duluth was made, the phone lines at KBJR lit up with suggestions on what Louis should do for a living, where he should live, and even who his sidekick should be. One of the more popular job opportunities, at least in the mind of Duluthians, is for Louis to be the aerial lift bridge operator. The most popular place for Louis to live is Park Point, and some callers even thought Louis should have a sidekick. This brings us to the most popular place of employment for Louis. According to a number of callers, Louis should be a meteorologist and work for Channel 6. Dave, Michelle, it's been really great knowing you. Good luck in the future. Take care and keep in touch. In Duluth, cleaning out his desk, John Jetta, News 6.
Customers will no longer have to pay for incoming calls they don't want. With two-way radio dispatch services to compete with cellular phone companies.
Geez, there's several of these companies that have come out and they've been shut down. They keep on guys for misusing maybe their logo or misrepresenting.
There's unlimited liability for the investor. You become the owner, the general partners, so if the company loses millions of dollars and you've got your $10,000 in there, in a proportion, you lose additional monies and there could be creditors coming after you.
Fitting in is what every teenager wants, but peer pressure often leads to late nights and heavy drinking. The JCOP program has tried to eliminate that by picking up kids who are out after curfew and drinking underage. In 5 months, the JCOP program has taken nearly 900 kids off the street for being out after curfew or drinking. Once they're caught, they're taken here, and their parents are called. If they're over the legal limit, they stay overnight and get counseling in the morning. Experts call the program a success, but money that keeps the program alive is running out.
Funding at both the state and federal level are in jeopardy, and we're just real uncertain right now whether we're going to be able to continue the program.
It was supposed to be an experimental program that only lasted through the summer, but because it's been so successful, it's being funded for the short term through a grant. After that, if it's not included in this year's budget, the program will be eliminated. And without it, police say our kids are in trouble.
The fewer boundaries that kids see for themselves, the harder it is for them to fall within what's acceptable behavior.
And one of the problems with the 18 to 21-year-old drinking behavior is that they often involve younger kids in the parties and so forth, and that's when a lot of problems happen.
Problems JCOP has successfully addressed. If there's one message the program has promoted, it's that underage drinking and juvenile crime are community-wide problems, and solutions are within reach. Solutions they hope to continue to provide. In Duluth, Molly McMillan, News 6.
Our education.
"15 years ago, Mark Dahlman of Cromwell went into business with his brother. The two sold lumber and custom-made wood cabinets at first, but the business quickly expanded. Now, Mark Dahlman Wood Products sells directly through a showroom and mail order to all 50 states and beyond.
Right. We currently ship to every state in the United States. We have shipped some stuff overseas, but limited.
But the beauty of the business is that everything the company ships through mail order, they make and design themselves.
What we're doing here is we're running stock through a shaper, and it's part of a mass-produced item that we produced here.
What is that?
It's for a 4-hook mirror.
And the end result is pleasing to the eye.
You know that product you were watching us make in the back there? Well, that's what it is right here. What Tom was doing back there, he was cutting out this piece right here, the side rail.
These mirrors are sold both directly and through mail order. The etching is also done in-house, and the mail order business accounts for nearly 2/3 of the company's total sales, estimated at around $600,000. Not bad for starting with a $1,200 small business loan.
It actually was kind of by accident, because we were producing other wood products, and a company that was selling this type of item went out of business, and they came to me and asked me if we could produce a product for them. So at that point, that's when we added on and expanded.
The end result is a still growing business that Dahlman hopes will serve Carleton County and the region well into the future. A profile in success. In Cromwell, Jeff Pappas, News 6.
Tomorrow morning to be a health services worker out in Southern California. The National Disaster Staffing Office has asked us to prepare a list of people and their availability, and we're in the process of doing that right now. We're working with caseworkers in assessing the airport. He's going to fly out at 7:30 in the morning. He'll be at the airport about 6:30. Several different areas that they're working. Actually in a shelter, taking care of
We have 5 clubs here, 5 Lions clubs that are working this benefit from Poplar, Hawthorne, Lake Nebagaman, Brule, and Iron River.
Yeah, the best thing if nobody was home at the time. If we'd have been sleeping, it's probably been a whole different story. But everybody's all right.
Up your tax records at City Hall. Make sure that lot dimensions and materials are all correct. And
in this past year, if some messages changed about children, or do you think some attitudes have changed about our young people?
When I was growing up, it seemed like my neighbors were like a family. They watched out for us. If we did something wrong, they told my parents. I'd like to see us get back to that level.
I see the signs.
If we get our financial aid cut, we can't go to school. And if we can't go to school, we can't take it in power positions and can't change things. Also, people on welfare. It's really going to affect them majorly. It's a drastic cut to welfare recipients. And mostly people who are in power positions, too, to step up and use their power to change things.
It was pretty slow, but the last 20 miles was really bad. Coming from across the highway instead of straight at you.
Changing topics, let's talk about this
compensation past the session to kick in that $1.5 million increase in tax state. Some districts, if we do not put a freeze, are going to have their property taxes go up 50%, some 20%, some 15%. So this is something that is very serious, and hopefully we can pass this piece of legislation. The governor would sign it into effect. And what better news can we tell our constituents that your property taxes will not go up one dime next year? The industry should see this as a real signal to them that we want to continue.
Changing topics, let's talk.
Local governments are going to have to cut back just like the state government is. And we are cutting state agencies to make the dollars available for education and for property tax relief.
When he got near that tether with that Geiger counter, it took off. It went right up the line. You could hear it just rattling, click, 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 click.
But Army Corps and MPCA officials say it was actually just a problem with the Geiger counter, and a later search found no signs of radioactivity.
We had a hit we made a pass over an area and there was a hit. We couldn't duplicate it. Brought it up, they found an instrumentation error, and we went back down again and never could get a reading anymore. So we felt that it was an instrumentation problem that needed and was repaired, and we never were able to duplicate that.
People leave things to the last minute and realize they're not going to be able to finish everything in time, so they need the application to file for the extension to give themselves a little more time to finish up.
If they have like $1 interest income, you make over $600 and you are required. Not real busy last year, very well.
The sights and sounds are familiar. An Easter Sunday, a church filled with people, and the Easter message. But behind the worship, some Christians believe there is more and more intrusion into the day's true message.
When I was a boy, you couldn't find even on Sunday anything open. We've taken a big swing the opposite way. They used to honor Easter and honor Christmas. They used to honor the Sabbath. Today they don't even honor the Sabbath.
It's hard to avoid. Bunnies, plastic grass, Easter bonnets.
But, you know, commercialism is what you're talking about, and Christmas and Easter are so highly commercialized with Santa Clauses and Easter bunnies and Easter eggs and those kinds of things that it almost distracts from the real meaning of Christmas and the real meaning of Easter, and that's the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
It presents an extra problem for churches in an increasingly complicated age. Some clergy are seeking a common denominator to share with their congregations.
Christmas, with all its commercial trappings, is a little more distracting, I'd say, than what happens around the celebration of Easter. But I think people who have a spiritual sense about them want to know that God loves them, that there's hope for them.
They're there all right, frog crossing, next half mile. But the new signs didn't seem to slow traffic any on this busy stretch of County Road 19. And this time of year, leopard frogs just naturally move from their winter home in Lake Independence to their summer home in a wetland where there are no fish.
They will not breed where there's fish, deep water. We put a road between their winter and summer habitat. They need to get across, and there's not a particularly high percentage of those that make it.
Frogs in the road leaping 2 by 2, don't let a car run over you.
Madeline Link knows the meaning of that song. That's why she and volunteers, students from St. Barnabas School and others,
You may not be anywhere near the road without a vest. Safety, right? We don't want any splattered children. I mean, it's bad enough to see the frogs splattered.
of course that was the idea, to get the frogs across alive.
There you go.
But it was a hurry up and wait kind of deal, moments of excitement, tempered with long periods of waiting and watching.
I have no idea what that sound is.
The unusual thing is that they're doing this for an animal that is not on the threatened or endangered species list.
They used to be caught by the millions for supply houses for high school biology classes, for research, and they're used for bait. But they're definitely declining for a variety of reasons.
But Madeline Link figures the biggest reason for their decline is roads and cars, and she's doing what she can to give leopard frogs a better chance.
Changing the world is this. It's small things that we do together to make ordinary people's lives better. And we've done that. We've done that together.
Wow, thanks. I too want to extend a welcome to all charities, board of directors. There's Mary. For the State Department of Development.
A burned-out spot in the woods of Tallapoosa County marks the horrifying end of the jet's cross-country journey. As you can see in these aerial pictures, the C-21A Air Force Learjet broke up on impact as it tried to make an emergency landing at the Alex City Airport just 4 miles away. Eyewitness Jimmy Keel describes the terrifying scene he saw over his business 6:30 Monday night.
You could tell he was struggling with the plane. He was that close, you know, that I could see into the cockpit of the plane. He fought the plane to get it up. If he hadn't, it would have probably took a home and possibly a nursing home that's directly in line with it.
As dawn broke, a busload of Air Force investigators and searchers descended on the scene. Their grim job to find all 8 victims and recover the evidence. All day long, emergency crews held reporters back. This is as far as we could go. The crash scene itself is roughly a half mile into the woods.
Right now what we're doing is we're marking all the artifacts at the scene. We're trying to paint a mosaic of what actually happened, determine the cause of the accident, and prevent that again from happening in the future.
We did learn new information this afternoon. While the jet was originally on its way to San Antonio from Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland, the pilot radioed he was going to divert to Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, and that's when the trouble hit.
The aircraft was diverting to Maxwell Air Force Base. He then declared an in-flight emergency and tried to make it to Alexander City, and that's when the accident occurred, when he was trying to get to the airport here.
Right now, we don't know the nature of that in-flight emergency. Searchers were able to pull the black box from the wreckage. That's the flight data recorder that could determine what went wrong. The Air Force investigation could take 2 months or longer. In Alexander City, Alabama, Phil Rosen for NBC News.
What we're doing for car batteries, lead acid batteries, car, light truck, garden tractor batteries, every battery that you bring in, maybe it's sitting in your garage or backyard or something, if you bring it up, we'll donate $1 to the Nature Center, Hartley Nature Center.
Take any weekend day, some sunshine, add a smooth stretch of blacktop, and you're bound to see them. But laws could change for inline skaters. A recent court case has classified skates as vehicles.
That would mean that you would have to have reflectors on, you would have to have lights on.
They're faster than skateboards, some say more accident-prone. And now because a 19-year-old was struck and killed skating across the highway, the Minnesota Court of Appeals is asking the legislature to review what's legal and what's not when it comes to skaters sharing the road with cars.
Certainly, if you prohibit rollerblades from being on the roadway and absolutely do not allow it, it's liable to cut down on a fatality.
For most people, inline skating is just a great form of exercise, but for other people, it's transportation to work.
Well, I commute, I ride to work on them, and especially in the summertime, it's a good way to get a workout in and get somewhere at the same time.
Jim Keel doesn't drive, so he's hoping the legislature doesn't change laws around skating as a form of transportation. But even if they do,
I'm going to do it whether it's legal or not.
In Duluth, Molly McMillan, Channel 6 News.
squad car? First, you're really glad to see them.
We had Minnesota State Patrol en route with their helicopter. Also, Duluth Police Department brought dogs over, plus one of our own members had a dog, and we had 12 members leave work and come to join the search.
2.5 and 1.
What are the two girls' names?
Sarah and Laura. This is A-R-A-H. Yeah.
Was Laura just...
Every day, pesticides and herbicides are applied to lawns with the intention of killing unwanted weeds and bugs. However, the very same chemicals could be harmful to you, your children, and your pets in more ways than one.
People are using lawn chemicals, and we're really close to Lake Superior, and of course these lawn chemicals run off into the sewers and it ends up directly in the lake where we get our drinking water. I think it's a real problem there. When you get into the rural areas, you have more of a problem with agricultural pesticides.
The fight against unwanted lawn and garden guests is in the process of turning over a new leaf. A better educated public has slowly begun to move toward alternatives like Project Green Thumb or organic methods of pest and weed control.
I think there's less use of pesticides. There seems to be a greater demand out there for more organic lawn treatments, and as far as landscaping goes, there's more demand for natural landscapes, for native trees and shrubs.
Project Green Thumb's main goal is zero pesticide lawn and garden practices and public education on how to obtain that goal.
Organic or non-chemical pest control would include picking bugs off your plants by hand, mechanical control, just taking the bugs off and squishing them. Other ways to do it would be bringing in ladybugs that eat aphids.
Using organic methods may take more work. However, in the long run, it may mean a safer environment for you, your children, and your pets. In Duluth, John Jetta, Channel 6 News.
Their cracked, small scratches show they were a favorite companion for a child, but to collectors, they're family heirlooms. Behind every fragile face is a story.
The lady that brought her in is the granddaughter to the lady that owned her when she was little, and this doll was purchased for her 5th birthday.
Marcia Olson calls her workshop in Eveleth a doll hospital.
Cement these little babies back together.
She spends months repainting tiny smiles and eyes, sewing and stuffing limp bodies, and filling in the cracks of time. Some of the dolls over 50 years old.
I believe they're of great historical value to us because they give us a much more personal idea of what things were like.
Some of the most precious and valuable are Depression dolls. Marcia says families felt lucky to have them.
People have put a lot of love into those dolls. Sometimes by the time I get it, I like to say it was loved to death.
They come to her hospital from all over the world, some in worse shape than others. And there are so many, Marcia tells owners they won't get their doll back for at least a year. But the hours she spends are worth it, she says, because she knows they'll bring to life imagination for generations to come.
Not that I'm saying they're alive, obviously not.
In Eveleth, Molly McMillan, Channel 6 News.
What's happening is those materials on top of the bedrock are sliding. The solution to that is to anchor some sort of a retaining wall into the bedrock and then build back with new material and reconstruct this walkway on a stable foundation.
The timeline is get the steel up and get the building closed in by the end of December and finish the construction in June of '96 and occupy the building for actual maintenance of airplanes in late August of '96.
Second grade about, I planned on an art career, I guess. I got a box of paints from my second grade teacher, painted through grade school. I got to high school and my dad bought me the artist course out of Minneapolis, correspondence course, and I took that through high school.
Thus began a lifetime as a commercial artist, painting what other people wanted painted. This fundraising poster collage for Como Zoo is another commercial commission, but with a twist.
And they said we'd like to have it by the middle of May. I told them that they might as well pack it up and take it home with them. When I turned 70, I decided I was going to take no more commissions where I have to be dictated by someone, so they're letting me go on this. I can just do what I want. And when they see it, they might want a few things changed, but they're going to have to work at it.
After all, they hired Jean after a Twin Cities artist accepted the commission and then failed in her mission.
And she kept at it and doing the drawings and putting off. She just didn't. She was going to do it in watercolor, and she started last July, and she hadn't finished her sketches yet. So they finally had told her that they have to quit with her. So they came and asked a few galleries if they knew of anyone that's been doing a lot of detail work, and I do a lot of detail work.
The zoo will run off about 3,000 prints, selling them as a fundraiser. I'm Mel Stone for NBC News.
Those domes right there is where they store the sludge. What the mulching mower does is breaks the blade of the grass down into little pieces so it can go back into your lawn and down into the soil. And you can do that with any type of lawnmower just by mowing more often.
Is there some type of fragrance you can put in?
We're doing, they're called maskins. Those right there is where they store the sludge if they can't burn it all. They store it in
The
those
domes, the side domes or the tall ones?
No, those little ones. Yeah, the round ones.
Okay, yeah.
And white.
Do they really have a cell phone? I think so. I thought I remembered seeing it.
That's my Greta Anna.
I'll win them so I can kill them.
Exactly, that's...
Well, no, one more is we're giving one guy. When we're down here,
It's in the truck.
Oh, okay.
Well, basically, the three different...
Animal Allies, Friends of Animals of Cascade, Society of Douglas County, Cliff Mark and Jason.
You might think that moving the Fourth Fest inside would put a damper on the festivities. In fact, the opposite has been true. Staying dry seemed to be on everybody's mind today, and the vendors at this year's event appreciated the fact that the crowds came in a good mood.
It's really starting to get busy right now. Do you think the weather, you've been doing better outside or inside?
I think inside. I think the crowd is really getting big. I mean, I don't think they want to be out in the cold and the wet today.
Thought with the weather the way it was, we were going to be outside, I didn't think I'd sell anything. But I'm really happy that we moved in here. I think it was a good idea.
So you're having a good 4th then?
I'm having a great 4th.
Even with that arrow through your head?
Even with the arrow through my head. Would you like to try one on?
No.
As well as other programs in the state receiving grants as well. And I know that it will be well spent. Is new in Wisconsin and is one that
money is this for the program? Is this a drop in the bucket?
To me, what it really demonstrates, in all of the talk about fighting crime, which is very important, we have to recognize how important local involvement, local efforts, and directing our attention to people who have been victimized by crime, how important those efforts are.
Attention or what?
I think people are still concerned. They are still having problems. There's still no answers, and I think they just want to get the answers somehow, some way.
But I think they don't know that, for instance, that just this week the Congress voted to buy more B-2 bombers than even the Pentagon asked for. Mr. Gingrich's allies insisted that we do that, even though the cost of just one of those planes could pay the entire tuition for every single student in the University of Wisconsin system.
Both of my batteries are fully recharged in the event that we do lose power. So I made sure that this was charged. I got, yeah, see, this is what I saw. It's got the extra battery.
Wonderful.
Okay, well, we'll adjourn this hearing again until tomorrow at 1. Contrary to section 941.22A.
Thank you.
Cooley. Griffith, July 18, 1995, that recklessly endangering another's safety, to wit, people who lived at 1107 John Avenue in Superior, under circumstances which tend to show utter disregard
where he was standing. So there's 2 direct shots in that exact angle at the victim. If someone's shooting at a house to scare somebody, from law enforcement's perspective and from my perspective, the evidence, they wouldn't miss that much, and they wouldn't have 2 shots right on target with a human's head.
What kind of jail would they be looking at if convicted of something like that?
Well, attempted homicide is a maximum 40-year prison sentence, so could be anywhere in between. There may be.
Fairgoers are advised to make the detour route, turn off Stinson Avenue onto Hammond, and enter the fairgrounds back gate. Parking will be provided near the airport and as normal on the west side of Tower Avenue. Fair officials expect traffic delays.
If we get some of the crowds that we've had in the past, there's going to be traffic delays because of the fact that we are down to 2 lanes, but I'm sure we'll get through it.
Construction on Tower Avenue began in early May, and Ron and other organizers will try to work to make this fair interesting enough to attract a large crowd. Over 70,000 people usually attend the fair, but Ron says he hopes to keep those totals up this year.
Well, I think we got a pretty well cross-section of entertainment for the people, and they can get in at the $5 adult price, and it's a pretty good entertainment package for that.
Novak emerged from the St. Louis County Courthouse today escorted by his attorney Rick Holmstrom. Aaron Novak was able to leave the courthouse today without posting bail because he was granted supervised release, meaning he'll have to report periodically to a court officer similar to a probation officer.
That's correct. He was released on supervised release. That's a program where if you qualify, you have extensive contacts with the community. You have no or significantly little criminal record. He has no criminal record. You can be released. That's a judgment called by the probation department and the judge.
Meantime, the other man charged in this case, Sergei Petrov, is scheduled to make his initial appearance next month. Petrov has been suspended from the UMD hockey team pending the outcome of this case. Novak played last season for Bemidji State.